all right, if you bought this 4 years ago, it was 400 grand. Now it's about 650. So you just sat there analyzing, overanalyzing, looking at the numbers, not sure. If you had just purchased that property, because you could have, you would have been up $250,000 in equity in 4 years, but you didn't do it.
Welcome back. We're back 10 units in 10 years, talking about picking your market. Today we have with us Andrew Chapman from 4 Points Realty. He's going to talk to us about picking a realtor to help you in your search and getting into the questions that need to be asked on both sides of that. But before we get started on that, Andrew, thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about your background before we get into it, please.
So I have had my real estate license since 2008, so about 18 years. I originally got it because I wanted to get into real estate investing myself. One of my childhood friends' mothers was able to basically pull herself up from homelessness to owning, I think she owned at her peak like 24 units. Wow. And now they're all free and clear. So she's done very well for herself, like in the Salem, Mass, Swampscott, Mass markets. And I was always like, wow, that's a great, a great thing to have, obviously that kind of financial freedom.
That's a great story.
Yeah, and it's something that kind of motivated me to at least, when I was younger, maybe like 23, 24, be intrigued at least about real estate investing. It took me a little while to get started, but it got the idea stoked in the back of my head that I should, look into real estate investing as a means, to, again, be financially free and be able to, support my family when I'm older.
Nice. Tell us a little bit about your story. You said you made mention of it took you a little time to get started.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little detail on that?
So I actually went to school for engineering. I used to write code. I've done a bunch of different things. I had a hospitality consulting franchise that I sold. And in 2014 was in a little bit of a transition. I sold solar panels for like a year, did pretty well with it. And then I decided to make the leap full-time into real estate, so helping people buy and sell property. In about 2016, 17, I had a friend who had a nice exit from a small medical device company, and he had some cash, and I had been working with an investor, finding them properties to flip, and he said, why don't we flip a property? I'll put the money up. So he put up the money to purchase the property. I put up everything I had at the time for construction. That was in Hyde Park. It was a small single family in Hyde Park. It's crazy to think back on it now, 10 years later, or 8 years later, whatever it is. We paid $150K for a cape, cape in Hyde Park. And I learned a lot. I was there. So I had a friend help me renovate it. And so I'd pick him up every morning at 4:20, drive him in there. And he was helping me do all the carpentry, the demo, everything. We hired, a plumber, an electrician. We eventually hired a painter because I realized pretty quickly that I hate painting. But it was great. It was a great learning experience, being hands-on. That was my first one. I think I made like 50K, just over 50K, which at the time was like life-changing. It was amazing. And then from there, I kept doing some flips, and then I started realizing pretty quickly that my biggest expense was income tax from these flips.
Yep.
So you're thinking, hey, I made 50, and then you realize you got to give the government, 20 of that. So accountant was like, hey, why don't you buy some properties and hang on to them?
Sure.
So
pick up that depreciation.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Exactly. So 2018, started buying and hanging on to some multifamily property. And I think now with different partnerships throughout Massachusetts, I think we're at almost 350 units.
Nice.
So yeah, getting there.
Yeah, you hit on a couple of things that we'll talk about in some future episodes. You talked about a partner, and you talked about someone that had some money. So when we get into our talk in a couple episodes about funding, that'll be a great topic for that. And you also talked about flips and having someone to work with. So we'll be talking about that as we move this process along for people. So 2 questions I'm going to ask you. The first question, when someone's calling a realtor like you, someone who's new to this, because that's what this is geared for, people that don't have real estate experience, unlike yourself and myself, who are like, okay, I need to go find an agent who can help me look for my properties. What kind of questions should I'm a brand new person. I've never bought a piece of property before. I'm calling you up out of the clear blue. Hi, Andrew. My name is Peter. I want to get into real estate. What kind of questions should I be asking you in to do my due diligence and selection of the right agent to help me out in the process?
Sure. So I think the big thing is somebody who works with investors, right? Somebody that understands the process. And I think even to take that one step further, like we talked about earlier, someone that actually invests in real estate themselves, right? That's the best possible person that you could find to work with you to help you find property and identify property for yourself is someone that's been there before, right? So when someone comes to me and interviews me, I can talk about, like we were talking about earlier, walking through a property and pointing out deficiencies, understanding, lead paint and de-leading and the costs associated with that, zoning changes, that's a big one. So I have walked through a lot of properties, thousands at this point with other agents, and I usually just let them talk. But I hear it all the time. I see it from wholesalers. Oh, it's 40 grand. This thing will be fixed up. And I'm like, I'm going to spend 40 on the exterior. We haven't even talked about the inside. So I think the point I'm trying to drive home is that experience of kind of knowing, when something doesn't quite smell right, when someone says, hey, the attic, oh, you could put another unit in the attic. That's an extensive process. That's expensive. That's architects, potentially engineers, zoning, attorneys, meetings, tens of thousands of dollars up front, maybe to get a no. Right? So I think a lot of times people that don't have that experience will sort of sell you on the dream. Hey, you could add a third unit. That's not easy to do. And that's something that you don't want to undertake on your first property. So I think really understanding what that agent or broker's experience is with investing is important. And I think any sort of questions about that, the barrier to entry is pretty low for a real estate agent. You take a 40-hour class, pass a test, you get your license, right? You don't really need to have any other experience. You don't have to apprentice with anybody. You do need to hang your license with a broker. And they do have some oversight over you, but it's real minimal. It's real minimal. I'm licensed in New Hampshire and Maine too. Maine, for the first 6 months, the broker has to be involved in all the transactions. So there's more oversight. Not in Massachusetts, not in New Hampshire. So agents
so pass the test.
Pay the fee, get the license.
Get my license, and I'm a realtor.
Pass a Corey, like some basic stuff, right?
Sure, but that's it.
That's it.
Not like you're an electrician. I have to take a test.
5 years of apprenticing.
Correct. Fire sprinkler people, plumbers have to go to courses. Now they just take a test and away you go.
That's it.
Got it.
That's it. So so you get all sorts of people, all different walks of life. Contractors might have their license. I don't know. Someone that has extensive construction experience could be good. They can definitely walk through and give you some ideas on, deficiencies with the property and kind of a ballpark of what cost should be. So I think really overall, that's the big piece is what kind of experience do they have? Because you might have somebody that knows real estate, they know how to sort of value properties, but they might be deficient in the areas of investing. Like they might sell luxury real estate. Like that's not going to help you.
Correct.
Or somebody that, specializes in condo sales in the city and you're looking at multifamilies in the suburbs.
Right.
It doesn't make sense.
Those don't fit. And they don't have any referrals too. Like if someone's involved like that, they can say, hey, look, if you need a home inspector, like you and I don't do we don't pay home inspectors to inspect our properties anymore because we've both been doing this a decade and a half or longer. We're like, I can walk the building myself. But in the beginning, we're going to recommend you get a home inspector, you have someone come walk the property, you pay them to go, hey, look at this. Hey, look at that. Their job is to find deficiencies. So, they can be a little alarmist sometimes, but they give you a full picture of things. But a realtor who's involved you can say, well, who do you recommend for property management companies? If I had a problem out here, like who do you use? You have a plumber, you have an electrician.
Sure.
And those people, their business, your business is it's referral based.
Yes.
So, like if you need a roof, I'm a new person, I buy a house, I need a roof. And the realtor gives me, hey, call this guy because he's done 3 roofs for me and he calls, then that just works well for everybody.
100%. Yeah, I think having those guys on speed dial, that you can say, hey, you're going to need this, this, and this. I got a couple of guys. I always have strong recommendations. We have strong relationships that we've built with vendors in local markets, and I can refer them. Use them, don't use them, but I'm going to at least know that this person's not going to rip you off.
Correct.
Right? Because I've been working with them. I feel good referring them. If you don't like them, you don't want to work with them, that's totally fine. It's totally up to you, but they're going to take care of you. At least be honest and do a good job on the property.
Right, because a lot of times what happens, and we see this all the time, you've seen it, I know I've seen it, you see people get in, they buy their first property, and they get information from a realtor who's not in the game, who sells them, like you said, on that dream. And then what happens? They get into the property and they find out it's not what they said it was. It's not in the condition they said it was. It's a lot more money to get it going. And they get discouraged. They spend a whole lot more money and more time. And all of a sudden, 2, 3, 4 years later, they're like, this doesn't work. I'm just going to sell. I'm going to dump it. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to get out. I'm going to cut my losses, whatever the situation may be. And they're gone and they go the other way. And that's another person that goes, yeah, real estate's dog crap.
And telling horror stories.
Telling horror stories, and it's not true.
You
approached it wrong. You didn't get the right mentorship from someone, and you took advice from someone who gave you bad advice. And because they're not financially vested. Like they're they're salespeople. Their job is to sell a property. That's how they get paid, right? So if they don't know what they're doing, and you get into something, well, once you close on it, they're like, "Hey, thank you very much. When you want to buy another one, come talk to me."
Absolutely.
And now, the ball's in your court.
To make it work, to actually execute, right?
Absolutely.
Guidance, mentorship is huge, but I also think it's important to have somebody at least in the marketplace that you're trying to buy. I hear people, hey, I listened to this podcast and, they were recommending investing this way. And it's in Arizona.
Correct.
Like, that doesn't work here.
That doesn't work.
And it doesn't apply here, right? So you need somebody, I think, that has some experience and can offer some guidance in the markets that you're trying to work in. We all know landlord-tenant in Massachusetts can be tricky, right? And that can cost you a lot of time and money.
Sure.
So somebody that's been through those situations, or a lot of them, I think, and somebody that can, like you said, can refer a good attorney to help you with those things like that. It's important.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When you talk about, I've listened to some of the podcasts a lot, and they talk about, I try to make this, and they talk about, I want to make $100 profit per door. And you're like, okay, that's an okay statistic, maybe, but like, I'm not going to teach that to someone. You buy a 2-family or a 3-family, and you're like, you should make $100 per door, and I'm going to be like,
$200 a month.
I make $200 to $300 a month. That's not what I'm doing here. Like that. Okay, you have a 200-unit complex,
right?
And you want to shoot to make $100 a door. Okay, a little more in line. Probably not like 200 units, profiting $20,000 a month. That's probably really thin on the finances.
Sure.
So there's people out there that say things.
Yeah.
And they may be right, they may not be right. It all depends on the market they're in. And then all of a sudden, people take that as, oh, well, these guys here said this. And you can name, you can name the big names without naming people that have been in the market for a long time. And they say things, and people take it as that's the way I should do it.
Sure.
When they have to come back and get their own local market data and analyze it and go like, oh, well, that may work for them, but I can do this over here. Or while the numbers are much different over here, they're better, they're worse, whatever.
Yeah.
I talked to someone a couple of weeks ago that I was traveling with in Vegas, and he's like, I've been trying to buy property. I've had 3 agents looking for me in and around the Boston, Cambridge, Medford area. He can't find anything.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, Rich, you're trying to do something like that? That's never going to work in that area. Like, what the rest of the people in that area are doing with properties like that is they're making them condos. Yeah. Because it's the only way the math works.
Sure.
And so he's hasn't gotten great information from someone.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Second question on the other side of it. Yep. So what can these people, when I'm calling you, what kind of questions should I expect from you? I'm going to call you out of the clear blue, and you're going to be like, and you probably get calls like this all the time. Somebody went to a seminar. Somebody listened to a podcast. They're like, I want to get into real estate. I'm all excited. And they're calling you, and you're trying to figure out, does this person have a clue as to what they're talking about?
Sure.
Because a lot of times people are embarrassed to come on and say, hey, Andrew, my name's Peter. I'm new to real estate. This is kind of my plan. I want to get 10 units in 10 years. I want to do 2 families, 3 families, 4 families. I've identified this kind of a market. I'm looking in this area because I'm close. I'm within an hour to an hour and a half of it. And I'd really like to talk to you about, either meet you at your office, get a cup of coffee, talk over the phone about, like, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this and how you would approach this if you were me?
Sure.
You're now going to vet me to go, am I going to spend any of my time or resources or anybody in my office to talk to this person?
Sure.
What sort of questions should these people expect to get and not get offended at? Like, why is this guy asking, why is this person asking me this?
Sure. So I think the biggest one right off the top of my head is finances, right? Where are you at financially?
Yep.
And I don't need, social security numbers or bank statements or anything in the first conversation. I don't need your social ever, but it's not that invasive, but I need to understand, how ready are you?
Yep.
Right. So have you talked to a lender? Have you been pre-approved? Do you understand how financing works? A lot of the questions, and again, there's a lot of different ways to go about buying your first investment property, right?
Sure.
Are you going to own or occupy it?
Yep.
That's a totally different conversation than, do you need 20 or 25% down?
Yep.
So I need to first get a baseline understanding of where they're at financially, right? Because if they just got their first job, they don't have 2 years tax returns, showing decent income.
Sure.
It's a very early start to the conversation.
Correct.
And I'm more than happy to talk to those people and share information with them. But if they want me to jump on it, I got a call 2 weeks ago from somebody who has a couple condos in the Cambridge market.
Yep.
He wants to sell them. He wants to buy multifamily up near Lowell.
Okay.
Right? So that's a much different conversation.
Yep.
Right. He's ready to go. But that's some of the first
But
conversations.
he's got the conversations. He's been like, okay, I have some capital, but I have these two things over here that have some equity, and when I sell them,
Sure.
right, and we'll get into those conversations.
Yes.
1031 exchanges and all that. But yeah, we talked about the previous episode. Get your financial house in order. That we're recommending to people you have 30%.
Yeah.
25% for down
great.
payment, 2% for closing costs, 3% for reserves.
Right.
We'll get into when we start talking in the next episode about funding, where you're at. Like you can be someone like, hey, I've got a good job, but I don't have a lot of money. Okay,
Yeah.
can I partner with someone?
Sure.
Do I have a relative who wants to go in with me and be partners? Can they loan me the money? We'll talk about all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's a great point.
So first point is that. Next is, again, based sort of on how that conversation goes, down payment size, kind of any markets that you sort of identified, any types of properties, right? So I have investors who are sort of C-class, workforce housing, looking to just provide, good, clean, safe space for people to live with no frills,
Yep.
right? And then I have investors who want the best. They want this beautiful Victorian that's turned into a two-family, that's 2,500 square foot apartments that they're going to rent to somebody fresh out of med school who relocate,
Sure.
And so I think it's important to kind of understand what it is that you're trying to identify for yourself. And I usually tell people in the beginning, like, let's cast a wider net. I don't want to be running all over the place showing you stuff that you probably have no interest in, but hey, maybe you don't know what you're looking for yet. And sometimes you walk into some property, and I think based on the person's background, they can be a little surprised at the condition.
Yep.
Maybe on how the conditions that some people live in.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I'm sure you've seen a lot of that.
Yeah.
Day to day of, people that are hoarders, maybe not the cleanest. And you got to kind of get past that a little bit, I think, to get started. I know when I first started looking at multifamily, when I was 23, I ended up buying a condo instead because I was having trouble getting past that. I was walking through two-family properties. Financially, it would have been better for me to buy a two-family, live in it, and rent the other unit out.
Absolutely.
But when I'm walking through that with my girlfriend at the time, and then going into gut-renovated, beautiful condos with stone counters and stainless appliances, she's like, I don't want to live in this.
One, yeah.
I'm like, well, yeah, but it's more of an investment, and that was an uphill battle. So I think trying to identify.
Yeah, we did the exact same thing when we first
Yep.
got started. Joanne and I, we first started buying in Chelsea, and Joanne would come down on the first, 4, 5, 6 showings, and she would be like, oh, this is okay, but I wouldn't live here. Oh, this is okay, but I wouldn't live
Yeah.
here. And finally I was like, honey, we're not buying these
Yeah.
for us to live into it. Like,
You're
that's
not
a
living
different
there. Yeah.
mindset.
Sure.
So you'll help people with that. Like when they come in,
Yeah.
these are new
Yeah,
people
yeah.
we're talking about here.
Sure.
You'll help them be like, okay, what do you think it is you're looking for? And then you'll help educate them on what the market has, like, be like, well, if you're looking in this area, you're probably not going to find it.
Yes,
If you're looking,
100%.
but did you think about this? Did you think about that?
100%,
So
yeah.
when you suggest that to people, they should take that feedback openly and not be like, well, I wanted to do this.
Sure.
They should be open to, okay, this guy's a realtor who could be working with me,
Yeah.
knows more about the market.
Yeah.
Maybe I should, like you said, cast a wider net until
Yeah.
I get to the point where I go, oh, okay, now
Yeah.
I've decided this is the area I'm going to be in, which may be different from the area I originally thought I was going to be in, and this is kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and I think walking through the properties, you get a much better sense very quickly versus scrolling through on the internet.
Of course, yeah.
Actually showing up at the property and saying, hey, is this something that I could see myself, putting a lot of hard-earned money, time, and effort into, or is this not the right area? Is this not the right fit for me?
Sure.
So I think actually getting out and seeing some properties, again, kind of casting a wider net. Go to some open houses. Your agent's not going to be able to accompany you to everything probably. If there's open houses in the area, go check them out.
Sure, you can go to
get a
those.
feel for it. And then you get a sense for what that does is you walk through 10, 20 properties. When there's a deal that you like, you know it.
Yeah.
Right? After you've seen it, this is the one.
This is the one.
Yeah, like you had said earlier, you toured 8 properties. No, maybe this is it.
Yeah.
And you just know.
Yeah,
right?
you know.
Because you get a good sampling.
Sure.
And you go out a few times and, all right, this one makes sense. Let's go for it.
Yeah, so you're getting yourself educated.
Yeah,
Like you're
yeah.
going out and spending the time.
100%. And if you've picked a good real estate agent, they're going to be able to walk through and point things out. You know, hey, we're in the bathroom. There's drop ceilings. There's some obvious leaking and staining on the drop ceiling. Like that could be indicative of a plumbing issue. We should look in that. Or there's no ventilation in the bathroom.
Yep.
Like, right. All these things where, again, if you haven't owned a property and you haven't been chewed out by the Board of Health or building inspector.
Sure. You don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. And an agent's probably going to walk you through and be like, yeah, this isn't too bad. You could upgrade it. But there's other things in there that they might be missing.
Correct. And they don't, and the Board of Health, the building inspectional services, they don't care. Like their job is to make sure they enforce the code.
Correct.
So they don't care if like, hey, this is my first property and I'm 19 years old and I have no idea what I'm doing. No. Or you're like us and you have hundreds of properties and you've been doing it for decades. They're like, I don't care. This is wrong. You have to fix it. That's their job.
Yep.
And you can't take that personally.
100%. Yep. So I think, that's more or less, time frame, finances, just getting a better feel for what it is their expectation is. And then I guess the last thing before I start working with somebody is you had talked about, a podcast where they say making $100 a door. What is your expectation? What are you trying to get out of this? What are you hoping to see for like returns or KPIs on your property? And I will tell you, a lot of times, like those pro formas, they're missing expenses.
Absolutely.
Right? They're always missing expenses. They said they spend about $300 a year or $3,000 a year on oil, and then you're like, okay, that sounds light. So, kind of going through that and backing into the math of what are you expecting to get out of this?
Sure.
And I think 99 out of 100 times you're not going to hit pro forma, right? There's things that are going to come up.
Sure.
And you got to factor in for that. So, things that break, pipes freezing. Ice dams was big this year. People are having a lot of problems with ice dams this year up in our area. So just things like that. But what is your expectation of what you're trying to get out of this?
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be a big expense either. It doesn't have to be like I need a roof or a heating system.
No.
And it's thousands of dollars.
Sure.
It can be, like up here in our area, we had, it was we got more snow frequently this year than we have in the past 3 or 4 years. So everybody who owns property, like their cost for snow removal has gone up.
Yeah.
I know mine's up almost 500% with all the storms we've had. So even if you have one property and you're like, hey, I pay the plow guy $150 to go shovel my 3-family and plow the driveway out.
Yeah.
Okay, and you budget, I'm going to budget, $500 or $600 for the season, and you get 9 storms, and it's $1,500.
Yeah.
2 or 3 little expenses like that add up, and all of a sudden you go like, okay, like what's going on here?
Yeah.
Again, you go back to that pro forma.
Yeah.
Like,
That can wreck your whole year.
It can wreck your whole year, right? It could be like, okay, the pro forma is all the lights to Florida are green. Let's step on the gas. Everything's going to be perfect. Like, come on, that's just not reality. Sometimes.
But I think sort of the bad path you can go down with that is overanalyzing.
Absolutely.
If you sit there and overanalyze forever, you're never going to buy anything.
Correct.
I had a guy, I'll tell a quick story one time, back in 2017, wanted to invest in real estate, sat down with him 3 or 4 times, started looking, kept looking. 4 years later, had not purchased anything.
Ugh.
And we identified a property where at the time, I forget the numbers, but he was interested in it. And I'm like, hey, remember this one? Yeah. All right, if you bought this 4 years ago, it was $400,000. Now it's about $650. So you just sat there analyzing, overanalyzing, looking at the numbers, not sure. If you had just purchased that property, because he could have, you would have been up $250,000 in equity in 4 years, but you didn't do it. So just, take action,
Right.
I think if you've identified a property, you've run your numbers, things look pretty good, like you're going to run into stuff that you didn't anticipate. It's going to cost you more. You're going to have surprise expenses, repairs and maintenance, CapEx, things like that maybe you didn't account for. But you got to just get into the game.
Yep.
You just got to get off the bench and do it. And that was just funny with him. And I still don't think he ever bought anything. I think he went to like crypto or did something different. But man, I'm like, you could have done really well with that property.
Yeah. It's a big thing we talk about here is taking action.
You got it.
This is not the whole premise of this 10 units and 10 doors in 10 years is get out there and get in the market, get into the game. I'm involved in some, you've seen people, I'm involved in some other real estate groups, and there are people that pay people thousands of dollars a year to get their knowledge and their mentorship, and it's great information. But you have to take action. I know some people in some of the groups I've been involved in these groups 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and there are people that like, okay, I bought this course. Okay, I come to these events every quarter. Okay, I put a nice glitzy website up. Okay, I'm doing this. And then I'm like, well, how many properties? I looked at this one. I looked at that one. I'm looking at something in Texas. I'm looking at something over here. And then it's 3 years later and I'm like, Have you even bought a multifamily in your own backyard? Do you have a 3-unit, a 4-unit? Have you done anything?
Yeah.
I haven't found anything yet.
Yeah.
You're spending thousands of dollars. You got to get into the game. So that's great.
Yeah, this is a competitive area. So for the people that are looking in, Northeast Mass, Worcester County exploded.
Sure.
Southern New Hampshire's going crazy. Even out into Western Mass is getting it's competitive.
Yep.
So if you're overanalyzing it, someone else is just going to buy it.
Yeah.
And then you're waiting, you're overthinking this one, someone else is going to buy it. It's just what's going to happen. The market's going to move, and someone else is going to come in and scoop it up, and you're just going to be sitting on your hands. So
yeah. So if you follow this podcast, we had Shana on last time, who's the person we're walking through the process with because she bought her first one. That's exactly what we did with her first building. We saw the building, we looked at it, it had an open house coming up on a Saturday. I called my broker and said, hey, we're going to be out in the area on Tuesday. Can I get in to see that building? She called the agent and said, yeah, it's on a lockbox because it's vacant.
Yeah.
We went in. We had the building tied up by Thursday.
Great. Yeah.
They canceled the open house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's kind of, you don't want to be like, okay, the market's competitive, I got to move. But once you get comfortable with your analysis, you have to get to the point where like, okay, I'm in a flow here and I can't just sit around and go, oh, that property will be there in a month because it probably won't be.
No, decisive action, right? You just got to do it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Andrew, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Yeah.
All right. And then remember, everybody, remember the mantra, why not me and why not now?